Prosecutors tell the jury that even though Sydney Loof's body was dismembered, there is clear evidence to show that she was murdered. Aubrey Trail chooses not to show up once again to Saline County District Court. Dr. Michelle Eliff, a forensic pathologist, testifies that Sydney Loof died of homicide that included strangulation. The autopsy examined the 13 body parts located and indicated Loof had abrasions on her wrists. Animals had gotten into some of the bags, and there may be signs of struggle before she died.
The bump on the head, the torn earlobe, the abrasions and contusions on the back, even the restraints themselves.
Toxicology indicates Loof had antidepressant medication in her system, but no signs of drugs of abuse. The defense argued that the autopsy couldn't prove if Loof's organs were used for a ritual or if this was an actual murder.
Based upon your examination, you were not able to determine whether the strangulation was intentional or unintentional, correct?
Based on the examination, no.
Dr. Stephen Symes, a forensic anthropologist, testified to the cuts made to dismember Loof's body. He said at least 3 different tools, a saw, possible knife, and shears or scissors were used.
A lot of people say, well, it's got to be a power tool. At the time when they left, they said, instead of a power saw, let's look for a hacksaw.
The judge didn't allow the public to see the autopsy photos in court. Reporting in Wilbur, Jake Wazakowski, 3 News Now.
Union Dike was a big topic of conversation. It breached in the flood. John Winkler with the Papio NRD says the plan as of now is to get the dike between Fremont and Valley to pre-flood condition. But some residents want to use different material other than sand and raise it.
When they're talking about here, they said, we want to put that thing back the way it was. Folks, it wasn't any good or we wouldn't be here tonight.
Others in the crowd agreed.
Build them better and stronger. Don't build them the same.
When I had a construction business and we would build stuff, I would say, guys, let's go for the overkill. Let's make it so it never fails. That's not their logic.
Winkler says raising the entire dike would cost hundreds of millions of dollars.
We could add 10 feet to Union Dike, but it's only as strong as the weakest point in that system. So if only that 9 miles or 10 miles gets improved, then what do you do upstream that's not improved? So when that fails, that will flank that levee, and that levee will fail.
Winkler, along with host Douglas County Commissioner Mary Ann Borgeson, says any of their plans could change based on input like they got from residents Monday night. The folks at the meeting also blamed the dike breaching on the massive ice jams in the rivers. They wanted to know why dynamite wasn't used to break them up, which has been done a few times in the past.
I was in the military. They could drive right down that dike and they have enough military weaponry to blast that ice jam.
Winkler responded by saying they took a hard look at it, but it was too windy to send a helicopter or airplane loaded with dynamite. And the military suggestion was unrealistic.
The military does not fly missions to blow up river ice.
Now progress is underway. They're currently hiring contractors, and work on a long-term fix for the Union Dike is expected to start in late December. In the studio, John Kipper, 3 News Now.
This picture over here is showing you that a baby's dropping down.
Midwives help women throughout their pregnancies, but there are a couple different kinds of midwives, certified and uncertified.
You can see here that on this pelvis that the baby...
A certified nurse midwife goes through schooling to become a nurse, has to get certified, and then has to get her master's for most hospital work.
So a traditional midwife doesn't have a formal education that has been certified by a credentialing board.
Uncertified midwives, also called lay midwives, have no credentialing, training, or proper education in the field.
A lay midwife is a controversial thing.
Lydia Rhodes, a local certified nurse midwife, refers to lay midwives as
uneducated birth assistant.
Birth assistants because, unlike certified nurse midwives,
well, in the state of Nebraska, a certified nurse midwife is not allowed to be at a home birth.
Uncertified nurses can assist in home deliveries.
I think it comes down to the fact that people desire a home birth. And since a certified nurse midwife is not able to be there, they will compromise and use someone who is not certified.
It seems a bit backwards, the less trained midwives being the only ones able to assist in home deliveries. Angela Hawk is an uncertified midwife who tried to deliver a woman's breached baby at home last month. That baby died 2 days later due to complications during the birth. Hawk now faces up to 20 years in prison for child abuse resulting in a death.
In the state of Nebraska, a certified nurse midwife is not allowed to attend a home birth. If there is not a certification to that midwife, then they can be at home.
In Iowa, however, certified, trained midwives have a different set of rules.
It is legal in the state of Iowa for a certified nurse midwife to do home births.
A limbo of rules and certifications that vary by state can have deadly consequences. However, midwives, no matter the certification, remain increasingly popular during a woman's pregnancy.
We are there walking with them in the halls, doing position changes, helping them through it. We don't just come in right at the end to deliver the baby, but there's kind of more of a personal relationship there, and I think women want that.
Reporting in Omaha, Rudolph Sinaida, 3 News Now.
Midwife services are offered all throughout the country but have different restrictions by state. Angela Hawk is scheduled for a preliminary hearing in early August.
Aubrey Trail returns to court and tells the judge he'll be good and claims that he won't have another outburst, most likely because it's his turn to tell the jury what he says happened to Sydney Loof the night she died. He says his initial story was garbage. Trail comes back to Saline County District Court with large scars on his neck after he slashed his throat 2 weeks ago. He takes the stand in his own defense, claiming he and Bailey met Sydney Loof in March 2017 and paid her to be part of his illegal activity because she needed money.
She was in desperate straits, I guess is the right way to put it, and I'm sorry to say I played on that.
Trail claims Loof left them for a while, but that in November 2017, Boswell wanted to restart a relationship and Loof needed money. That's why he was at Menards. He says he offered Loof $5,000 to be part of his antique theft ring. And the three ended up in sex acts involving choking when Trail claims she died accidentally. He adds there were no other women, and no one paid him $15,000 for a sexual fantasy.
Sydney Loof died that night. Later down the road, I come up with a story to try to protect me and her, mostly her, but because it was only me, Bailey, and Sydney there the night Sydney died.
He admits he lied about videotaping the encounter. Trail claims there was no ritual involved in dismembering her body. He couldn't fit her in their car, so he cut her up on the kitchen floor and cleaned everything.
What did you use to dismember the body?
I used a saw it's similar to a hacksaw blade, but I call it a curve saw.
Trail said he panicked and they disposed of Loof's body in the rural Clay County field when it was light out. He admits to disposing the body, but says he didn't murder Loof.
On hindsight, it was a really bad decision, but it's one I own. I mean, I did it. I have to live with it.
Trail says the talk about witches, vampires draining Loof's blood, and sacred cemeteries was a complete lie. Reporting in Wilbur, Jake Wazakowski, 3 News Now.
As a woman, you can do anything you want.
From bomb techs to evidence analysts, women can do every job in the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Here in Omaha, they're putting a special emphasis on recruiting women.
We can't do our jobs effectively if we don't represent and reflect those communities. It's really important that we get a variety of cultural, religious, ethnic backgrounds to join our agency so that they can bring that perspective.
I think women think a little differently than men, and I truly believe that having that input into cases is going to be helpful just because you're getting a kind of a full circle at investigating.
Special Agent Alexandra Kassar says at a scene, women offer a different perspective.
When it comes to crimes against children or human trafficking or places where sometimes there's victims that are women, I think a lot of times women feel more comfortable talking to other women.
It's not easy to become an agent.
You have to be physically fit. You have to be able to do the same, firearms and weapons standards as men do.
Ready?
Yep.
Set, go.
I tried the Special Agent physical fitness test. It's not easy.
Your elbows are hitting the middle of your knee.
I didn't train for this, but even for people in the best shape,
I said I could do 13.
And then you're gonna come back up.
The physical fitness test is hard.
I'm so sweaty now.
We have a lot of folks that come to us that have a variety of athletic backgrounds, but if they're not training to those 4 events for that test, it's going to be a struggle.
You failed the test already.
Oh. Did I fail at the running or the sit-ups?
The running.
The test consists of sit-ups, 35 for women in under a minute, a timed 300-meter sprint, you have 65 seconds, at least 14 consecutive push-ups, and a 1.5-mile run. If the physical fitness test isn't for you, there are 800 jobs within the division, and the special agent position is the only job that requires a fitness test.
We've got personal protective equipment over here that we would typically use.
Jonna Sabo is an intelligence analyst. She processes evidence.
Tell me, what's the first thing I need to do? Well, the first thing before we go out is we have to have on personal protective equipment.
Sabo says depending on the scene, you may need to wear a tie vest to protect you from biohazards at the scene, and it keeps you from contaminating the scene with your own DNA.
Wait, I saw them.
Now we can process fingerprints.
You can see a little bit more detail, so you really have to look at them and see what's going to be your best print.
These women are a good shot, too. Stevenson shot 100 last time she qualified. Special Agent Claire Catano says although a gun isn't always necessary, it's an important part of her job.
Unfortunately, monthly, weekly, there could be an active shooter in your workplace. There could be an active shooter, at the movie theater with my kid.
So she's always prepared and can shoot just as well or better than a man.
The Omaha Division will host a diversity agent recruitment event on July 23rd. You can find a link with more information about that recruitment on our website, 3newsnow.com. In studio, Sydney Gray, 3 News Now this morning.
For the first time, prosecutors reveal the grisly details of what they think happened to Sydney Loof inside that Wilbur apartment in November 2017. Both sides give their closing statements in the first-degree murder trial of Aubrey Trail. Prosecutors say the premeditation was clear through video of what Trail and Boswell did the day Loof was killed.
Bailey Boswell and Aubrey Trail, how did they prepare for the date? They buy a hacksaw, they buy job cloths, they buy bleach, they buy all the items you need to kill and dispose of a body.
They believe Loof was lured to the apartment to smoke weed and was ambushed in the living room. Was choked to death with force.
She fought. She did not survive. This death was up close. It was personal. Strangled her, face to face, eye to eye. Squeezed the life out of her.
Prosecutors say Trail and Boswell put up drop cloths, creating a makeshift room to keep blood and evidence from spreading when they cut her up. The defense argued that the only evidence authorities have that Loof was killed in Wilbur was what Aubrey Trail told them, and their murder theory isn't based on evidence.
Didn't happen that way. You can't just make stuff up. They're doing the same thing they're accusing Aubrey Trail of doing, is making stuff up.
Prosecutors say Trail and Boswell trended towards murder because of all the witchcraft, torture, and killing talk with his previous girls.
These people were practicing witchcraft. Do you ever hear any one of them say they went to a witchcraft meeting?
The defense argued that experts didn't testify the new hacksaw purchased was used to dismember Loof's body, so there was no premeditation. Prosecutors say Aubrey's stories about explicit sexual acts before her death with people she just met makes no sense at all.
He changed his story about the death of Sydney Loof in front of your eyes. So who's credible? Absolutely. Common sense.
Reporting from Wilbur, Jake Wazakowski, 3 News Now.
On the final day of the Aubrey Trail trial, both sides gave their closing arguments to the jury before they deliberated on if Trail killed Sydney Loof. Prosecutors told them Loof was lured to the apartment and then killed.
She fought. She did not survive. This death was up close. It was personal. Strangled her, face to face, eye to eye. Squeezed the life out of her.
The defense argued that authorities had no evidence of their theory that Trail killed Loof in the Wilbur apartment.
Didn't happen that way. You can't just make stuff up. They're doing the same thing they're accusing Aubrey Trail of doing, is making stuff up.
Closing arguments ended in the late afternoon, and it didn't take long, less than 3 hours, before the jury reached a verdict.
Do find the said defendant as to the charge of count 1, murder in the first degree, guilty of murder in the first degree by purposely and with deliberate and premeditated malice.
Trail was then convicted of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder as well. Afterwards, the family was clearly emotional. They declined to speak to media, as did prosecution, along with the defense, who say they may speak tomorrow.
Hey, we'll probably say something tomorrow. We got to get ready for the aggravator hearing.
And in that aggravator hearing tomorrow, the jury will determine if there are any aggravating conditions. If there are, Trail could face the death penalty. Reporting in Wilbur, John Kipper, 3 News Now.
Social media. We use it, we click, we share, sometimes without thinking too much about the source.
Make sure that you're getting your information from a trusted source. And if a friend is posting something on Facebook, definitely ask them where they found the post before you go ahead and share it on your own post.
A recent Facebook post has been circulating around Sarpy County stating that someone is injecting women with syringes filled with drugs in the bathrooms at Nebraska crossing outlets.
So we found out about it about 11:30 last night from one of the local residents in Gretna that actually saw it posted on Facebook, and she was kind enough to share it on Facebook Messenger so that we got a jump start on making sure that people knew that the rumor was not true.
It's getting shared. People are even commenting that they've seen women being taken, getting sex trafficked.
So we're very careful about what we actually say on social media. Unfortunately, the rest of the world isn't 100% that way. They see something, they post it, they repost it, they want a lot of shares, they want a lot of likes, they want a lot of attention.
As far as this particular social media post goes, we don't have any reason to believe that it occurred.
And this isn't the first time that this has happened. The mall says a similar false social media post was being circulated around the same time last year.
The last time it went out on Twitter, the initial response from that person was it happened somewhere. They assumed that it happened here, and they actually did it for more shock value than to really think about the consequences of what they were saying.
It's part of a national problem, fake posts being circulated, alarming communities about public safety.
It looks like dates back to 2014, and it's actually been recirculated in different jurisdictions throughout the United States. There's one in Denton, Ohio, there's another one in San Bernardino, California, and now it looks like it's popped up in Sarpy County.
Most people that share these types of posts are just trying to warn their friends and communities about possible dangers. But again, always check the source of information because in cases like this, the only real thing that is dangerous is false information. Reporting in Sarpy County, Rudolph Sinaida, 3 News Now.
See the shiny stuff? That's the new nectar.
Working as a beekeeper for half a century means Lynn Danzer has plenty of knowledge to share.
They need a lot of water just to cool the hive down.
He's answering questions about this honeybee colony, which many hives like this struggle to stay alive this spring.
I went down from 60 down to 5. I lost that many.
I had 8 hives last year. I lost every one of them.
I've never had a hive survive the winter.
Danzer says his colonies average around 50,000 bees, so in losing 55 hives, he lost more than 2 million bees.
If you get a wet year, you'll see heavier losses than you will in a dry year.
The moisture would get in the hives, then would either freeze during the cold spell in March, killing them, or mold would grow inside, killing them that way.
There's a margin of error with most things. Like you can expect you're going to lose a couple hives, maybe to an illness, but at this astonishing rate and this quickly.
According to a new study from a University of Maryland nonprofit, beekeepers across the nation lost more than 40% of their colonies from April 2018 to April 2019.
I want to live to study bees, and I can't do that if they're not around in 20, 30 years when I want to study them.
Lauren Stitzman, another local beekeeper, says disease and the increased use of pesticides also play a role in the decline.
They're driven away by the scents and the toxins, and they can track that back to their hive.
That's why Danzer and others are using this moment to share information about the importance of bees and what you can do to help their numbers.
Pesticides are a big one, and switching to buying local honey instead of the grocery store honey is a big one, so then you can support local beekeepers and local businesses.
In Omaha, John Madden, 3 News.
Aubrey Trail has been found guilty of first-degree murder in the death of Sidney Loof here in Saline County Court. They were supposed to have an aggravator hearing, but that didn't happen. I still wanted to find out from the jury if they felt Trail's testimony was credible or not. Trail doesn't show much emotion when he's found guilty of murder and conspiracy. Sidney Loof's family embraces deputies and investigators at the conclusion. Jurors only deliberate for about 2.5 hours before saying Trail deliberately murdered Loof in his Wilbur apartment. Video surveillance shows them buying tools for the killing and cover-up. One told us everyone agreed.
I mean, it was just pretty much common sense, I think. All the evidence really was there.
Loof's family didn't want to comment outside of court. Trail testified in his own defense and said he'd been lying the whole time. There weren't two other women involved. Only he, Boswell, and Loof were at the apartment and claimed it was an accident. Jurors didn't buy it.
When you listen to Trail's testimony, do you find him believable, or do you think he was just trying to con everybody again?
He's trying to con. Like at the end of the trial, you want to go ahead and try to tell the truth. It's kind of hard to believe it after you change your story 3, 4, 5 times, you know?
The defense argued investigators didn't know who killed Loof or where it happened. They said Wednesday was the first time they heard the prosecution's theory that she was ambushed in the living room and created a makeshift room with drop cloths to dismember the body. Joe and Ben Murray were disappointed with the verdict.
You know, we don't want to criticize anyone, but it was 4 weeks of testimony, 900 exhibits, and, you know, they weren't even out for 3 hours.
So now they're in the death penalty phase. They're going to have to get the 3-judge panel together consisting of 2 outside judges, and they'll decide if the aggravators outweigh the mitigators. That will likely take months before that hearing happens, and then some time after that before a decision is made on whether he will receive the death penalty or not. Reporting in Wilbur, Jake Wasikowski, 3 News Now.
Summer camp for a few Bellevue kids is a little different this year.
On your mark, get set, go!
STEM Studies is Bellevue Public Schools' newest addition, and kids are literally making a splash.
What brought me here is a teacher recommendation, and I really enjoy coding. I've loved coding since the 4th grade. It's just really enjoyable.
For Mac and many other students, coding became a hobby after they got the hang of it. BPS teachers recommend excelling students who can think creatively, problem solve, and collaborate together.
Keep going.
Campers were able to create spheros and rafts, which all had robotic motors inside. They were put to a test to see which robot can actually make it through the aquatic maze, all navigated with an iPad.
We want them to learn that failing is okay, but quitting is not. That's another thing we talk about in class a lot. Just that idea of failing forward, continuing to make changes to what you already do.
Failing forward is a motto all kids learn to embrace. Boyce says it's about showing students that trial and error is not a weakness, but a strength. The campers were able to build their aquatic robots in a little over an hour. Once the race was over, they saw how fun science can really be.
It may sound like, oh, you have to wake up so early, or like, I'm not really interested in it, but it's really fun.
Charles Benedict wasn't known by any of us here, but for a moment, he was in all of our hearts.
We hope that it's a fitting send-off for a true American hero that has earned this recognition at this final journey home for him.
Just 2 hours prior, the Nebraska Patriot Guard riders found out about Sergeant Benedict's funeral.
There is no family, and the cemetery reached out a couple of hours ago, and we reached out to our people in very, very short notice.
Ashes to ashes. Roughly 40 people showed up, dust to dust, spending their afternoon paying final respects to a man they never knew.
You don't want anybody to pass alone or have that thought that that could be one of your family members. And so you want to be there to honor them.
For Mandy Sudbeck, Thursday marked an important life lesson to teach her kids. Their stepdad is in the Air Force.
And so for somebody to make it home and not have anybody to have that legacy devoted to, we just wanted to make sure that we were there to show that gratitude.
As the soldiers folded Benedict's flag one final time, those in attendance had one more opportunity to honor the David City, Nebraska veteran.
Those of us that are here are symbolic and are representing the rest of our membership. To us, it means everything. We exist as the Patriot Guard Riders to honor our heroes and our first responders.
Reporting in Omaha, Phil Bergman, 3 News Now.
We've lost a lot of equity, we've lost a lot of cash, we've lost a lot of farmers, and so we're aggressively looking at all different kinds of ways to bring additional revenue to farm and ranch families.
John Hanson with the Farmers Union has pushed hemp for well over a decade, seeing it as another option for farmers along with corn and soybeans.
I think there's a need for a profitable crop, period.
Hanson and many in the ag industry were elated when almost 90% of the legislature voted to legalize the plant in late May. They hoped the state would work quickly on setting up the regulations before opening up the application process.
I was a little bit surprised that it took this long to roll it out.
After a week-long window, 176 applied, with the state selecting a random number for licenses. But it's unclear how many got them. In an email, the Department of Ag didn't give specifics. saying a limited number got approved and they'll make the list public once agreements are made with the producers. So now, in the middle of July, it doesn't appear that those who got licenses can even plant hemp yet, with the window for 2019 closing quickly.
We're probably over the time to being able to plant the crop this year and have a productive crop for harvest.
That's Graham Christensen. He was denied a license this year to plant hemp on his family farm in Oakland, Nebraska. He wants the crop because it's environmentally friendly, good for his soil, and has a number of uses, such as for CBD oil, rope, and clothes.
It definitely meets our farm's goals to be able to help people live better lives, and it helps our farm become more environmentally friendly as well.
Christensen is optimistic he'll get approved next year when it's believed the state will fully open up the process and allow more growers. But if a large number of farmers apply in 2020 and the state only takes a few, it's safe to say there will be some unhappy farmers.
If that happens, there will be trouble.
And now Hansen also tells me hemp doesn't only have potential for farmers, but could help create jobs for Nebraskans, as he hopes processing plants will open up to turn hemp into different types of consumer products.
It's a bike ride that started on the West Coast.
San Francisco, California. So that was about 2,000 miles ago.
And now is past the halfway point here in Omaha.
There's been a lot of mountains and some deserts. I'm from Illinois, so I'm used to the humidity in cornfields. So it feels really good to see a Casey's gas station.
While the ride has been great exercise, Derek Leahy and the Pi Kappa Phi fraternity are doing it for a different reason.
We have the ability to do that. There's really nothing stopping me from getting on my bike. I have full mobility of my body, and we do it for people who don't.
One of those people they're riding for is Naya Carmen, who's in a wheelchair due to spina bifida, a condition that damages the spine and can cause disabilities.
You always just have to focus on the things you can do instead of the things you can't do.
One thing Carmen wanted to do was show support for those who are on this journey.
These men have dedicated their entire summer to taking this bicycle ride and to do this journey to raise awareness.
Raising awareness is key, but the fraternity is also spending their time interacting with those who have the condition.
It's really cool to see the interaction between the guys and our members, and to have it that they each learn from each other.
The journey isn't done. 1,800 miles remain, and the first 2,000 were tough at times.
Fatigue is a given when you're averaging 75 miles a day, but we make sure to stay hydrated. We eat lots of good food. We get treated very well at many cities.
But who they're helping is why they keep pedaling on until they finish up out on the East Coast.
There's a lot of people out there who would do anything to hop on that bike and to ride across the country, and so for us to do it in their name and for their honor is what really means a lot.
In just under 1 week, the club at Indian Creek will be filled to the brim for the 2019 Pinnacle Bank Championship.
It's been a lot of fun to see people's reaction when they show up on site. They just simply say, wow, because the size of our structures is like a small PGA Tour event.
In its third year, the tournament organizers feel they're getting their footing when it comes to putting on such a large-scale event.
This year's different than year one and year two in that we know what to expect, and so we don't necessarily stress the things we don't know.
With 30,000 square feet of temporary structures, the course has some new features for spectators.
Air conditioned on the first floor, glass all around for great views of 9 and 18. And a second story open air where you can see all the way to the tee box at 18.
One of the biggest undertakings every year for the Pinnacle Bank Championship is the driving tees. Normally this is the farthest where you can drive from. But since these pro golfers hit the ball so far, they had to build new driving tees all the way back here.
A lot of people don't realize how far back that tee box on 18 is, that it's incredible.
What impresses me more is how far they can hit it, but how accurately they can hit it. These guys hit it long and they hit it straight, and it's really impressive to see what they can do.
With options such as the Party Central Hole 17 to shaded seating at number 18, there's a place for everyone to catch the action.
You can follow a golfer the complete round, or you can just sit at one hole and see how everybody fares on the par 3.
I think we've got the ability to really make the golf course pretty challenging.
Reporting in Elkhorn, Phil Bergman, 3 News Now.
A one-of-a-kind train pulled into Omaha this afternoon. Check it out. Dozens of people lined up along the 10th Street Bridge to welcome Big Boy. The Union Pacific steam engine is the biggest steam railroad engine in the world. Gary Binder came from Waverly to see the train. He was given a poster of Big Boy when he was a child and has always wanted to see it. He says it's what he hoped it would be.
It's very impressive. Nice and noisy, like a steam engine should be, and it ran so smooth, you just hardly hear it as far as the machinery.
The Big Boy 4041 underwent 2 years of restoration. It's in town for the weekend as part of Railroad Days. The engine dates to the 1940s when 25 Big Boy engines were exclusively built for UP.
And we catch leopard frogs.
Dan and Brooklyn Stay-School are still working to get their life to the new normal, living along the Platte River.
I just really want it to stop flooding in.
Dan says another danger is piling up. Debris along the Burlington Northern Santa Fe Bridge on the Platte has them worried again.
And when you walk over here, you see this stuff collecting here. There's not a lot of room, a lot of leeway for the water to go underneath the bridge. And I mean, everybody's, on edge anyway.
Residents of Hanson, Chris, and Betty Lakes are troubled by the amount of trees and other debris collecting on the west side of the bridge, and it's not going anywhere.
If we have another flood event, the concern is that the debris coming down the river will settle against this bridge and then back everything back into our community, and we'll have a third flood this year.
BNSF does have workers clearing the east side of the bridge, but they can't get to the west side where the debris is building. Dan says the sand has risen a number of feet too. Check this out. He says he used to be able to get an airboat pretty much underneath most of the bridge. Now you got to duck your head to even get through.
There's not much leeway, and especially with all that there, everything that's going to come down is going to stop.
Residents believe flooding in May was partly to blame on a causeway built to repair the UP and BNSF rail bridges. Frazier says the levels dropped 1 foot the day after they removed them.
A clear indication that any obstruction in this area directly impacts our community and raises the potential, it increases the potential that we'd be flooded again.
They want to see BNSF use a rail crane to take the stuck trees, boat docks, and other items away from the bridge because it's creating another problem for residents who have already dealt with so much.
I was devastated. I had 2 places, there's nothing to save, but there's people that have rebuilt. There's people that didn't have insurance that are on their last dollar fixing their place, and I'd hate for anybody to go through this again, especially when it can be preventable.
Reporting in Sarpy County, Jake Wazakowski, 3 News Now.
If you're downtown and looking for a good place for lunch, you may want to check out the best block in town, and that is Block 16. With a farm-to-table approach using everything local, Block 16 is a place where comfort meets freshness.
The burger is one of the best I've ever had. Very, very good. Top notch.
Block 16 is constantly featuring a new or specialty dish on social media, enticing people to come and line up even before doors open.
First day I got here, they had a sign on the door that said, "Don't hold the door open." So I'm like, well, that means there's going to be a long line. I was like, this place is going to be pretty good. I had to drag him out of bed because you got to get here early.
What's on our gift cards? Farm to Face.
The owners, Paul and Jessica Urban, seek inspiration for their dishes through their travel experiences, staff suggestions, and even their Canadian, Belgian, Italian roots.
Jess and I are both in fine dining backgrounds, so we take a lot of the food that we love to plate, and we try and put it in between bread or in a burrito wrap, and we just have fun with it.
It's a sandwich-heavy place with unique flavors and plates you won't find elsewhere.
I love how everything's different. The fries are really, really good.
An example, their poutine burrito.
Tater tots, got roasted brisket, some local cheese curds, and malt vinegar aioli, and some gravy.
Yum. And which, of course, I had to try.
Oh my goodness. It's definitely napkin food. You need a lot of napkins.
No, and I'm the world's messiest eater.
Oh, yeah.
That is absolutely incredible.
Thank you so much.
That you can, the brisket, super moist.
Awesome.
I love that. Okay. But I didn't stop there.
These are the Block 16 fries with dragon sauce. It's kind of the secret sauce we do with there's a lot of herbs and spices in it. It's a little spicy, a little sweet. Griddled cheese curds, crushed fortune cookie, and a little scallion. Super tasty. And then we give you the fortune too.
I love the fortune. A fun party with close friends in your future. Okay.
Perfect.
Maybe at Block 16.
Yes.
That sauce is exactly what you said. Sweet with a hint of spice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love that. Or there.
Pretty good, yeah? Thank you so much. Thank you.
Who would have thought Mexican loving Canadian cuisine? I love it. So, we're so international here at Block 16.
Absolutely.
You'll love the taste almost as much as the prices. Each item here, the fries, the poutine burrito, and their famous Croc Garkin burger, each one sells for less than $10.
There are very few places where you can go to the menu and enjoy everything.
Block 16 has been open for 9 years and has been featured on several Food Networking shows and been recognized with multiple awards. So, what's the key to their success?
We're very family oriented. Jess and I, this is everything to us, and so we put everything into it. And then, I mean, it really is our great staff. We've had a lot of the same people here for several years, and we all hang out. We're all buddies.
Well, there you have it. If you're looking for that farm-to-table cuisine and for food under $10, Block 16 is a good option. That's your Cheap Eats tip of the week. I'm Maya Sines.
Stay connected at 3newsnow.com.